Good. Well, welcome everybody to our sheep and greet. It's great to see, well, we got 18 people out so far by my count. And we have people from District 9 and District 10. It's wonderful to see so many people, and I expect there'll be more people trying to sign in as we go along. So we're gonna start here in a second. I'm going to get Colleen to introduce our speakers, but I just want to throw a shout out to the Canadian Sheep Federation for allowing us to use their Zoom platform. It comes with no strings attached. So we get to drive the bus and bring as many people on as we wish. So that's a wonderful thing. So thank you, CSF. I don't think we need any more formalities. We're having another one just a little bit later on about the difficulties of getting the ins and outs of getting predator compensation. So stay tuned for that one as well. It'll be up in the next one probably. So I guess we can turn it over to Colleen to introduce our guests, and I'll shut my camera off to save bandwidth, and we'll talk to you just a bit later. Good seeing you all.
Thanks, Fred. Fred's the chair of our District 10, and we started our sheep and greet as a way of reaching not only our own district, but also having an opportunity to reach out across the province and just meet new people and share ideas and share different levels of information. It was suggested that the topic of record keeping would be a popular one and something that people are looking for more information, what tools are out there, what's the best information to record, so on and so forth. And we're very fortunate in Ontario to have both Jen and Chris Vervoort, who are sheep producers, but are also serving as the English tech support and salesmanship on the EweManage software program. So I'm not going to give a whole lot more information on Jen and Chris. I'll let them do most of that themselves. But for everyone that's joining tonight, we would just ask you to let Jen and Chris do their presentation. If you've got questions, maybe type them into the chat, but otherwise we'll save all the questions till the end. And we would ask that you introduce yourself when you go to do your questions so that for the benefit of everybody on the call, we can all learn from each other and greet each other and welcome your comments and questions. So Jen and Chris, I'll turn it over to you. I see you both there with your lovely sheep in the background. I don't know whether those are your sheep or not, but welcome aboard. And we're glad to have a good group of producers here to listen what you have to share with us this evening.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Colleen, and your district committee for inviting us. So I guess let's keep it informal. We're not really speakers. We're just producers like everybody else on the panel here. So Jen and I, most of you probably already know, but we farm near Arthur, Ontario. We have 500 to 600 sheep or ewes. Jen works full-time off farm at the University of Guelph in the sheep barns there, and I operate a hoof trimming and custom trucking business alongside the flock. Right now, we also have a part-time employee as well. So it's pretty busy, lots going on, and then EweManage as well. So so the way we got into EweManage was just more by chance. We were looking for a management software for our own flock, and it was actually at an OSMA AGM. We by chance ran into Jacques, and we met up with Jacques. We saw a presentation of this software in French. And at the time, what we were looking for a software, and I had the same question that every other producer has: just tell me who my good ewes are. I don't want to. I just want to know who my good ewes are. That simple. And you'll see it once Jen gets into it here. There was one slide that really stood out to me, and it was a bell curve graph, and it's just sorted out your group of, like, your weaning group by kilos of lamb weaned or produced by a ewe, and it was all color coded and it was very visual, easy to see, and I thought, yeah, that's what I was after. So we actually asked Jacques if we could try a French version of the software because there was no English version developed. So he told us we were crazy because we would never be able to understand it anyways, which he was probably right. So he offered to work with us for a year to actually work with the translation. So Ted and Joed Skinner, Steve and Lisa Irwine and ourselves, we took it on. We worked for a year to translate the software from French to English, which is it was a pile of work. It was pretty challenging, but at the end of the year, Jacques said, you know, it was ready to work and to send out, like ready for us to start working with, but he said he wasn't going to release it unless somebody was going to help him. So that's how we got into the software business, where we're just sheep producers that we're looking for a tool for ourselves. And that's still really where we're at, and yeah, being able to share it with other people. So yeah, that's how we got into it and where we are now. So as it is now, Jacques still runs Bergier, which is the French version of EweManage in Quebec with over 100 users. And it's been running for about 13 years. And we're running the EweManage, and we have users across Canada and a few users actually in the US as well. It's been extremely well received, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So
I guess some of the advantages of EweManage was the collection tools.
yeah, so a real drawing point for us to EweManage was a low cost of entry. We didn't have a lot of money to spend extra at a time. We have another system here from another data collection system and scale, and it was a lot of money, but it really didn't give us, like, we'd spent the money and it wasn't giving us anything, the reports that we wanted. So we've been down the path of spending the money, and now it was time to get some information. So what was really nice about this is we have a mobile app that'll run on an Android phone or an Apple phone, and you can Bluetooth to a simple RFID reader. A lot of users are using the Allflex LPR. It's just a bare bones cheap reader, and a lot of people can be set up with everything they need for under $1,000 and doing all their reporting and record keeping. So yeah, do you want to share some more?
I can share the screen, I guess.
So I guess Jen will get into showing you the software. And
so what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and show you a dummy flock, I guess. I'm going to try and share my screen. So EweManage is kind of divided into two flocks. You've got your breeding animals and your lambs. So I just need maybe some help sharing the two different screens. So I'll see if this will work. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes, that looks good.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so this is the main page of EweManage, and it's also a record, which is kind of confusing for some people. I know it's a lot of information all at once. So you have, can everybody see my mouse moving, I guess, as a pointer? Yes, okay. So you have your main information on your ewe up here. So date of birth, their tag, their sire, their dam. There's buttons down here that are your activities that you'll use to work through the program. Every time activity is done on a ewe, there's a note made, and that's under here, histories and comments. You can manually enter notes in too if you feel you need to. There's lambing statistics here, and then down on the right hand side is the lambs that are associated to this ewe. So I guess what's kind of nice is you've got a lot of information right in front of you, and you can, I guess, navigate to and from the lambs from the ewe. So these are all these are all the lambs here that she's raised. If I click on a lamb record, hopefully this shares, new share, I think.
Did it share to the lamb screen?
This is the hard part.
Colleen, do you have a
Yes.
screen that says lambs?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Now it does. It's a bit of a delay.
Okay.
Okay. So this would be an example of a lamb record off that U. You can navigate back and forth, like I said. So the main information that it takes on is the parentage, but also you can enter your weights in too. So you use your 50-day and 100-day weights on your lambs. And it's the same sort of screen setup as the main U record. So you've got your notes down below, and then yeah, different pieces of information that you'd be interested in. EweManage works really well with Genovis, if you're into that. If I flip back to the U record, hopefully this works. Can everybody see the U record again? No.
There you go.
Not
Okay,
yet.
hopefully, I'll try not to do that too much.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is.
So yeah, so Genovis and EweManage work really well together. So you can import your Genovis information, and it's pretty much displayed here on each U's record. So there's the basic maternal and maternal care indexes. You can go into a detailed record. I don't know if everybody can see that, but it gives you more indexes. And then yeah, there's your basic performance and some information on each U, and then you can do your breeding activities, your ultrasound activities on the screen, or you can use the mobile devices to bring data in that way. I guess, is there anything else you're thinking?
So
I guess I can show you some reports that we were liking, or that Chris mentioned. So I can bring up a report.
that one's a good one.
Okay. This was one of the nice reports that we liked about EweManage. So this is kind of a overall summary of your flock over the last 12 months. And it's your basic information. So how many rams are in the flock, how many active ewes, your cull percentage and your death percentage. Keep in mind, these numbers aren't accurate because it is a dummy flock and I haven't kept records up to date. Otherwise, there would be some cull information and death information in here for sure. What we really liked was the way it broke down your deaths. So if you're having issues with your lambing, you can kind of break down where your issues are, and then it makes it easier to talk to your vet if you need to look over some of your history of your deaths and your lamb performance. So the deaths kind of broke out really nice here. And then if I scroll down a little bit further,
Report your sales, where you sold.
yeah, there's reports of how heavy your lambs are that you're shipping out and you're selling, and where they go. So there's basically a breakdown here. And then down at the bottom, we like this report too. Breaks down all your ewes by age and their productivity. So it's kind of neat. The younger ewes you can see aren't really performing as well as when they get into that 3 and 4 year mark. They start to pick up a little bit, and then down by year 7 they kind of drop off. But it's a real nice visual of how your flocks broke down, I guess, by age. So if I go back to another record or another report.
Hold on.
Tools for selecting ewes. I had this written down here. There's a lot of ways to break out your information. So in this case, I'm going to take a group of ewes and sort them by all their lambing data. So I just have to pick out my group. So this is an idea of how everything's kind of color coded, and it breaks down in this group your best and your worst ewe based on kilograms weaned. So it's kind of neat that it highlights the bad ewe here, and then slowly kind of changes colors as they get better. So it's a kind of on a scale of 1 to 5, which is kind of neat. So EweManage also has a way of classifying the ewes. So that's this over here. And it, again, it's broke down in a classification of 1 to 5. So I can get the program to classify this group. So they're classified here, or I can individually classify them. So I guess I can bring up a report and ask EweManage to select ewe lambs out of my class 4 or my class 5 ewes, so my best performing ewes. Does anybody have any questions? Or am I?
Class 1, is this the screen you would see on your computer, or is this what you're seeing in the on your like iPhone in the barn, or both?
Yeah. So this is the main screen on your computer. So basically EweManage works off your computer on a Windows operating system, and your devices are used just to collect the data. So you wouldn't be able to see this in the barn. This is all on your desktop. All these screens that I'll be showing you tonight.
Okay. Celeste, I think you have your hand up. Want to unmute?
Unmute. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You bet.
Sorry. So I was just wondering how the classifications are calculated.
I'm not sure how they're calculated.
It'll be the kilos.
It's just kind of sorted by kilos weaned. So I know he has a standard deviation here. That's more of a question for Jacques, I guess.
The majority of Jacques' sorting is based on kilos weaned, or kilos produced per year per ewe.
So that's probably sort of the major measurement. So based on how many ewes that ewe has had, and is it sort of per lambing, or how would you deal with it on a sort of a star system or a multi-lambing system, where you're lambing multiple times per year?
So you can pull this report by a lambing or by per year.
Okay.
So quite often we'll do it after we've done our weaning weights. I'll pull this report by the lambing, and then generally if I'll just look at the reds, and we go to the barn and look at why you're red, and quite often they're a call anyways, or you've got a note on them that they're a call. But those are the ones I pay the most attention to.
So on an accelerated system, obviously the higher number weaned would be your ewes that are lambing more than once a year. In this lambing statistics, it has the lambing interval too, so you can tell how often she's lambing, and then how much she's actually weaning. And then he has it sorted out in this performance record too, so average weaned, average raised. So EweManage also has a dummy record, I guess, so to speak, for machine raised or bottle raised animals. So the ewe just gets credit for raising, like for what she's raising. But if you were to sort by average born, like you could pick out ewes that are dropping more lambs, if that's what you're after, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Thank you very much. That was great.
Okay, so I guess now that I'm on that topic too, one of the nice features about EweManage too is the search function, or this find function. So I can take all the ewes in my database, and so if I want to look at my performance, I can search for ewes that have raised more than 3 lambs a year, I guess.
You can.
So in this data system, I have 19 ewes that were really raising, like dropping lots of lambs, more than 3 a year, I guess. So if I want to take a look at the list of them, these are the ewes that were dropping over 3 a year. So then, yeah, so here's a list view of it. If I go back, I can scroll through each record and kind of look at them this way.
So with the find function on this software, you can fill, it'll search off any one of these fields. And whatever records match what you've entered in your search in any field. So for instance, you could go into your lambing statistics and say, I want to know who had twins in their 4th lambing, and it'll pull all those records. So any field that you can fill in, if it matches, it'll pull it.
So in using EweManage over the last couple of years, I'll often search for ewes off of a certain sire if I'm making a breeding group, or yeah, you can search any which way really. Your older ewes, like anybody that's over 7 or 7 and up, like in the lamb section, you can even sort by date. So animals that were weighed on a certain date that were over 40 kgs and up, so to speak. So it really lets you streamline your reports or your animals for whatever you're targeting, I guess. What's kind of nice about EweManage too is you don't always have to have a reader in your hand if you want to search up an animal. So there's an asterisk in the search field too, and it's kind of like a wildcard. So if I put the asterisk in this search field and enter the last 3 digits of a tag number, it'll search every tag in the database that ends in 1, 2, 3. So in this case, that didn't work.
You did. It went for you.
Let me just try that again. So there's one record, for example. So yeah, if you're out in the barn and you see a ewe that's off, and you can remember the last 3 digits, maybe not the whole tag number, you can search this way, and then you just scroll through the tags that it brings up. So EweManage is all based off the RFID tag, and it's all set up for traceability and reporting to CCIA. If you're not on that, you can really put any form of identification in this field, but this is what links all your lambs and all your ewes together. Because this was developed in Quebec has a 2 tag system. So for over here, we kind of added in Ontario, we kind of added the alias, which is a management tag. So you can search that these 2 tag numbers are linked together, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Anything else?
So until we trace your reporting, can you do your Genova stuff and sorting off Genovas?
I should, I guess all the reports are kind of produced off of your own farm needs. So if you were to start up with EweManage, the first thing you would want to do is go into the farm profile and set up the whole program that kind of evolves around what kind of activities are done on your farm in your production system. So lambing profile, for example, you'd enter how often you want to lamb your ewes and kind of set your goals. So here's your whole production system, I guess. Yeah, so for example, you're breeding, how long your rams are left in for, how long you flush your ewes, if you use cedars or not, if you ultrasound, and then your plan of action for weaning, I guess, and how long you leave your lambs on your ewes, or how long how old your lambs are when you wean off the feeder or artificially raised lambs.
Your calendar then. It drives your cow.
So I guess, yeah, this kind of drives the whole system. There's a calendar set up in here too, which I can show you guys, I think, if I don't have to share another screen.
So by entering those parameters in of what your program is, so say when we do a breeding and we put our cedars in and we scan in the barn, now it builds this calendar for all your activities off that breeding right through till weaning.
So here's an example of the calendar. So in EweManage, every animal in the system has to be in a group. So you kind of group your animals up, and then based on your farm profile and your lambing objectives, it'll kind of give you a highlight of when the dates of when each activity is due to happen, or when to prepare your next scheduled events, I guess. So yeah, this is just an example of how it kind of works.
You move animals between groups?
Yes.
And when you do something like a vaccination of a group, do you have to record it for each individual animal, or is it one action that will record that activity across all animals in that management group?
There's two ways of, yes, you can do the whole group all at once, and there's two ways of doing it. So down in the health book, there's an area or a button here that you can vaccinate a whole group of animals.
Okay.
Do a vaccine. Can do it, sure.
So I would pick I'd pick a group that I want to vaccinate, and then just kind of follow through. So a treatment with a booster, and we'll do it today. In the farm profile, you have to preload all the drugs that are unique to your own farm too. So all these drugs in here are preloaded in here. So if I go into here, so everybody that's in this lamb group 2002 just got a shot of Tasvax today in their records. And then so there's 24 animals in this group.
As well, on your mobile device, if you're doing individual treatments, you can add an individual entry, or we can do a group entry and just scan each animal as you go, and it'll apply the same treatment to each animal as you go along on your mobile in the barn.
So this is kind of a screenshot of all my groups. So you can name them any which way you want, and then it just kind of gives you a breakdown of how many animals are in each group. So like I said earlier, every animal has to be in a group. So EweManage also records all your deads and all your stillborns. So if the animal is a living animal on your farm, it's obviously put into a group, and then the tag status is active. If it's a dead animal, it automatically goes to a group 0, and then the tag is displaced. It's kind of similar for the stillborns too. It'll track all your stillborns, and each stillborn is individually numbered, like stillborn 1, stillborn 2, for example. So you can look back over all your stillborns over the years. On the mobile devices, if you're entering a lambing and there's a stillborn, you can it automatically defaults to stillborn, and you can enter it in associated to that ewe. Or if she had 2 live lambs, for example, you just scan the tag in that spot, and it records her live lambs. What else do I have?
Just let you know, there's a question in the chat, and it says, what would be the first thing to do? I kind of jumped in at lambing, and the ewe birth dates are not correct. Can you go in and correct that later? That question's from Jackie.
Yes, you can. So you can either just search up that animal and just enter, like change the birth date here. If it's a ewe, if it's a lamb, you can go into the lamb record, and I'll probably have to share my other screen. And you can just you can just change the birth date on the record, if that answers the question. I guess while I'm on this screen, all the lambs are in their own database or in their own flock. So that's the lamb database here. In order to move them over to the flock, there's a kind of a 2-step process. So there's a tab here, and you can kind of flag them as a potential or a confirm. So I don't know, say you want to keep all your your ewe lambs as potential replacements. Maybe entering a lambing function, you would enter them all as a potential or a yes on the mobile devices. And then later on, when you've weaned them, you want to go through their weights and stuff and you can confirm them. They have to be confirmed in order to move them over to your breeding flock. But it's just kind of a good way of double checking your breeding stock, I guess, before you decide to save them
into your main database,
so to speak. On the lamb side, like I said, if the lamb's alive and active in your flock, it'll be in a group number. And then there's a management group too. So the management group will take into account all your dads. So for example, if I want to look up management group 1706, and I'll go to a list. Here's a list of everything that was born in that management group. It's outdated, so they're all displaced and moved on to the flock, but it would show you your stillborns and your deads, and then all your potentials would be listed here.
About your 50 and 100 day weights.
Like, what do I have to say?
How they're calculated in the designs.
Oh, I guess for the 50 and 100 day weights, it's basically raw data. So if they're born on or if they're weighed on say day 51, it'll take the average up to 51 and then subtract 1 day of average daily gains. On this lamb record, I can look at the dam. If I click on the dam here, it kind of gives a breakdown of the dam's production information. So yeah, average daily gains, average wean per year, some Genovis indexes, and then if you're into Mutavisna testing, you can enter your test results in here too. This current meat performance and average meat performance goes back to that classification that I was talking about earlier. So if she's being classified, it'll take an average. Like if you're moving her, if she's moving up and down in the flock based on the flock's performance. So yeah, this is just kind of a breakdown of the mother's performance on the lamb.
I have to share screen.
Sorry. Going back to the ewe flock. Yeah, I guess that's kind of it.
Questions in the chat, Jen, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So one comment was, after flagging an animal, can you somehow get the scanner or wand to select them out as you go through the chute?
Yes. So the way we do
Jackie
it.
to explain that a little further.
Okay.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was wondering, because I have a Gallagher system and I can have a program where I can select tags, and then as the animals move through the chute, the wand vibrates and changes color on the screen to let me know that this is a ewe that's scanned empty at ultrasound time. And since I'm with EweManage, my programs are not really jiving, so I'm trying to find a solution when I eventually get my Samsung phone hooked up to somehow beep or alert me when I'm looking for maybe 5 animals out of 100 instead of visually reading their tags. Thanks.
So on your mobile device, if you use the sort function, quite often, so for instance, today I shipped ewes, I shipped call ewes. So what we did was we changed those ewes into a group called call. So
yeah, for example, here, we would switch their groups to call.
So then on my mobile device, I don't know if you can see this. Doesn't want to pick it up.
Oh,
can't see the screen on it. So on my mobile device, I use the sort function, and was the sort function on this one? Sorry.
Or
Yes.
the group. We switch the group.
The sort function, and then I select the group that I'm looking for. And then as I scan, I just keep scanning tags. And when I hit a call, the screen lit up red and it vibrated for me. So that was the way to pick out. So I can sort for any, for a group or for a sex or whatever I want, and the screen will ding and
So
be able to pick your sorts
if
out.
you're familiar with the mobile device, like EweManage Mobile.
I
If
am
you've ever
not,
used-
I'm still working on it.
Okay.
So right now I just write everything down and old school put it in the computer program. But I'm trying to see what's my best option here. Because like you guys, I spent a ton of money on a program that's not really giving me what I want. My second kind of follow-up question is, at the beginning you said a lot of your people are using what scanner? I missed the brand model number.
So it's the Allflex LPR. But what reader do you have?
I have a Gallagher HR5, so it's pretty snazzy. It's got the computer screen on it and stuff. But like you guys wanted to find your best use. And since I'm in Quebec doing the ATQ stuff, it just made more sense for me to get the EweManage Bergère program. Like I'm seriously contemplating selling it and then going with the scanner that you recommend and a mobile phone. Because when I was speaking with Jen, the Gallagher scanner program was a little different and wasn't jiving up with the Bergère EweManage program.
Okay, so we should be able to get your HR5.
No, it won't.
Will it not Bluetooth to your phone?
So Gallagher's kind of kept, because Gallagher has their own performance or management software. They've kind of locked it that it only works with their software.
Yeah. So, but you answered my question. Great. It was just to know that brand of this tag reader. So you also have another question from Celeste and Vanessa. So I'll let you get to them. But that answered my question. Great.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. I'll read out Celeste's question. If she has additional comments, please speak up, Celeste. The question is, can you speak to how small farms without readers would use the software? And does it track any revenue information?
So it depends on how small you're talking. Like I said earlier, you can, in your farm profile, you can select not to report to CCIA. As long as you have a unique number in your flock or even name. So up here where it says tag, CCIA tag, I can put a name in there, and as long as it's unique, that it's not repeated in the system, you can even use names. So again, it comes down to how many animals you're wanting to deal with.
Yeah, I think I was not really, the CCIA is fine as far as tagging, but just I don't have a reader. So I've got a small flock, 40 sheep, 50 sheep, it's not, I can't afford $1,000 for a reader or much for software. So I'm just wondering, I guess I'm kind of wondering what the target audience is and where it becomes financially viable.
So I think the financially viable part really comes down to how each producer values their data and what you want to get out of it. EweManage it's a fairly involved software, same as all the main softwares out there. You're only going to get out what you put into it. So to maintain a database of any sort, it takes some effort and it takes some
Learning.
Some commitment and some investment.
Some time.
So I guess that's really an individual basis of where that point is for value.
There is people with 40 sheep on here, and they went with the Allflex reader because it is the cheapest one that I know of.
Yeah.
Is that right? So, yeah. I just keep kind of thinking there should be something on an iPhone, some sort of software that's easily available. It seems even $1,000 seems expensive to me.
Yep. I get that. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the,
So with that $1,000, so the subscription for EweManage is $295 a year
Okay,
with and you have unlimited tech support. So Jen uses AnyDesk and she logs on with producers and remotely and kind of works through and teaches them stuff. But so that's $295 a year. And then, so the Allflex LPR reader, they're anywhere from $500 to $650 for the same reader, depending on where you buy it from. And then we have an app that we need to use, a keyboard app, to connect it to a phone. The thing about those simple readers is there's still resale value on them. So I actually have two of them. One in the truck, and I scan cattle tags with it when I'm trucking. And so it's not just, I don't just use it for sheep. And if I wasn't going to use it, there is still resale value on that stuff too. So for me, I'm dyslexic and I really screw up tags. And apparently it makes Jen not so happy. So, believe it or not.
it makes it quite confusing when we actually have legit the numbers that he mixes up.
So for me, no matter what system or whatever you're using, there's a lot of like the accuracy and the convenience of working with RFID technology. Setting aside traceability, I wouldn't manage sheep myself without it. Even without the traceability requirements coming. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. So can I just sort of ask two follow-up questions? One was just on the revenue side. Is there anywhere to track sort of the revenue for the lambs? Yeah, the price per pound you got or anything like that?
Yeah, so if I go into the lamb flock for a second here, share my screen. So you can enter the amount that you got. I think it's in here. I thought
There is a
Jacques was supposed to put an area where you can put the price that you received for that lamb. That's as far as it goes for tracking
the price.
the prices. I guess if there was enough demand, we could put that in for sure. Let me just look. Oh, what did I do?
So he does, and it'll track the grading and from the Quebec system, every producer's getting their grading back. He tracks that. There's a price, like
there. So
predictability calculator. And honestly, we haven't got into it. It's a whole nother section that we haven't had time to look at or learn about. Where you enter your cost, your feed cost. Jen was on that screen before.
oh yeah, I can go back.
And the software will try and predict whether you should. It's more economically viable to feed your lambs heavy or light.
So you would have to enter all your main information in here, and then there is a report that'll bring up your cost of raising lambs, if I can find it.
Sorry, we haven't actually used that ourselves. So
Still learning. I just have to find enough animals in the group. Just be a second here. Animals. 1811 orange. So it's all out of date, all the data that's in here, but this is kind of give you a rough idea. So you enter your feeding values in, and then it takes the average daily gains and your weights that you put in, and it'll calculate the performance and whether it's worth it to feed your lamb, to sell it light or feed it a little more and sell it when it's heavy, I guess. But, I don't have all the information in the farm profile to make it all jive, I guess. EweManage also has some alerts too if your animals are exceeding 200 days. So it's mad at me right now because there's lambs in there that are over 240 days in the database. But this is, yeah, there is a report in here that looks after that for you. I haven't, yeah, like I said, haven't gone into that.
Is there still another? Does that answer your question?
It did. So can I, sorry, I
Yep.
don't mean to sort of, just one more follow-up question was, you had mentioned that it captures all of the information that you need for CFIA. So is there somewhere documented like what it is, the information we need to track for CFIA purposes? I manage everything on a spreadsheet kind of thing, and I have a variety of events and so on that I track. This looks really, really detailed as far as the information you're tracking. So I'm really impressed with everything that's in there. Is that what CFIA is expecting?
So when we send to when we send to CCIA, we don't send all the information. It's basically like activating your tags and births and deaths. And
Okay.
then so how like and tag movement, we're not obligated to do the tag movement yet, but it's the whole program or the software is set up that it can do that. So anytime you have a lambing, you'll bring in a lambing record. Let me just see if I can go back here for a second. So you'll bring in a lambing record. It'll come in kind of like this. So Chris was out in the barn, he scanned some ewes, and this is what your record would look like bringing it in from the barn. All this green information is all your new information that you would change, and then the non-highlighted green is obviously the stuff that's already in the system. So I would bring in a new lambing record. I will confirm them.
So this is your chance to review. This would be your screen to review your data before you dump it into your database. Yeah, it's a double check point.
So yeah, for this example, I would confirm my lambings. Actually, maybe I can just do it here. It's telling me that there's lambs already born, but you would bring in your new lambs. And then when I go back, it'll say, do I want to confirm? And do I, if you were set up for CCIA, it would say, do you want to report to CCIA? And you would say yes. And it automatically, the system automatically generates a report and sends it to CCIA. To their computer, and it'll verify and it'll say it's been received okay, and then there's like a 3-minute delay, and it'll declare your tags, and CCIA's computer will send it back to EweManage and say, yeah, they've all been accepted. So now EweManage has tags that were born on a certain date, and CCIA has certain tag numbers that were born on a certain date. So then throughout the course of the lamb's life, if you were to do anything, so if you were shipping, it would do the same thing for a shipment. It'll record all your tags, and it'll make up, EweManage will make up like a manifest, and then EweManage will ask you, do you want to declare to CCIA? And you click OK, and then the system sends it off to CCIA.
Very interesting. Thank you. That's good.
Also, when with those reporting too, if you're reporting to Genovis, so for instance, if we have a dead animal that we enter, the system will also ask you, do you want to report to Genovis? So you select yes, and it'll send the file to Genovis that animal's dead.
Okay.
So yeah, so building on that a little bit more, when I bring in that lambing record and I confirm my lambs, there'll be 2 windows popped up because I have it all programmed and set up in my farm profile that I'm dealing with Genovis and CCIA. There'll be 2 windows that pop up, and I click OK to both of them. So it sends reports 2 different directions. So that's kind of covers your lambing. If you wanted to send 50-day and 100-day weights, if I go back to the lambs, I can kind of show you real quick. If I wanted to send a report. So I would select management group, just for example. I have 42 records in this group that I'd like to send to Genovis. There's a Genovis and a CLRC tab up here. And then I would export 42 selected records to Genovis. So if I click on here, it kind of gives you a summary of what information you're sending to Genovis. You would obviously have your 50-day weights and your 100-day weights in here. And then you just click a button and it's all sent off.
Very cool.
I don't have pedigreed sheep, but you can register animals the same way. If you have all your information in EweManage, it's a click of a button and you send your registrations off to CLRC.
Okay, there's another question from Vanessa that's asking about adding other parameters. So just in the breed of sheep that Vanessa raises, she keeps track of things like percentage fleece color and number of horns.
Ooh,
Is there a
okay.
way of adding either comments or extra fields that would record extra information?
In the fleece.
Yeah, so obviously you can enter any comments at any time.
I will suggest second, comments do not work for us. I'm just wondering like a parameter for things that I can look up. I use
Why would-
Excel for that kind of stuff because it at the end of the day, it seems to work better for my kind of breed. I've tried a bunch of different kind of softwares. Unless I can add it as an actual parameter in the software, it does not work. A comment will not allow me to look up by. It's not searchable. So say if I want to look up if my ewe is producing more lilac or more black, I know not everyone cares about this stuff, but generally within the breed that I'm working within, it's kind of important. There are minor considerations, but I would like to be able to look up by that kind of stuff. Is there a way to add an actual parameter within the software?
So the way you would do it in EweManage is you would make a comment. So I can put any comment in here. As long as it's consistent, I can go up to the search and I can search any comment. Okay, so I'm just going to reset that. So I'm going to go back and search for that record that I put that.
4 horns.
Yeah. So I put that record in there and EweManage just searched up any record that I put that comment on. Does that make sense? So I can put lambing problems in here. There is a field that I can do that, but I can put any breed characteristics, like if they're black, any colors.
Yeah, so with that field, you can add anything?
Yes.
And then you can sort by it.
As long as it's consistent though. So if I'm saying 4 horns this time and I'm saying 4 horn next time, it won't work. But I can enter any comment in there, and as long as it's consistent and I put that equal asterisk and then whatever exactly I'm searching for, it'll bring it up. It'll search.
Can you search across the database to check for those kind of inconsistencies when you add a horn versus horns?
Well, you just search both ways.
Yeah, you can search both ways.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
So going back on fleece too, there is a milk section to EweManage, and there's also a wool section. So I can show you that too. To be honest, I don't know anything about the wool grading. So if I go down here for the wool. So here's some of the information that you can collect. To be honest, there isn't a whole lot of reports on this. I would need some producer feedback to what kind of reports you would want a software to report back to you. So yeah, that kind of gives you some collection fields, I guess, some information. And you can search by any of this too, any of these measurements. My
Before you
Zoom's
move
gonna-
on, can you just kind of zoom in just a touch? I'm sorry, my eyes are not that good.
I don't
So
know
you've
how
got
to zoom.
shearing date.
So there's a shearing date, proceeding, or sorry, a lambing date, days since lambing, diameter, a staple length, total weight, crimp, a ping test, color, front car, rear car, and neck car, felt capacity.
Yeah.
Does that help you any?
And then I think if
No,
you
that makes a lot of
fine.
sense. That's pretty cool.
go to find that, you should be able to sort. And then you should be able to sort by any of those.
Any of
parameters.
your measurements. Oh, I just went to the milk production. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I would actually like you to go to the milk production next, but that
Yeah, I can go to
you
milk.
the fiber is really cool. Go to milk. That's very cool.
Go to milk.
So we do have a couple of dairy producers on it. So we're kind of growing this too, but the milk section is new to us as well.
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the milk milk section. You can enter your milk values or your controls in here, and then it kind of averages them out. Like this is your annual information, and then this is your like day-to-day. So where we run into issues is a lot of milk producers don't have the equipment to measure all their ewes, I guess. That's a whole other ball game that I don't know anything about, to be honest. But yeah, EweManage has the capacity to collect all this data.
And once again, you can sort by all that data as well. Yeah. The thing about this too is if there's something in one of these fields that's really needed, and it's part of the thing that drew us to EweManage is Jacques is working on this quite literally 7 days a week. That we can contact him. So for instance, when we got started, we wanted udder scoring on our ewes. So just a simple good, bad, ugly sort of thing, 1, 2, 3 system. So we told him what we wanted, and 3 days later we got an update and we had udder scoring on our mobiles. So that was, that was pretty special to the software and to what Jacques is actually doing for us. So yeah, it was kind of a drawing point. And definitely that simple udder scoring, basically it's, it's a call, or it's kind of a functional udder, or it's a good udder. It's amazing in 2 years if you're doing that and calling ewes that you should call. And then when you go to your ewe lamb selection, those number 2 udders, you're not maintaining ewe lambs from. You really see the difference. Some of those simple selections are making on your flock.
Come through.
Yeah.
As far as learning EweManage, this is a little bit off topic, but if you just hold your mouse over certain buttons, we tried to have instructions kind of pop up and describe what each thing does. That one's in French. I guess there's still some French in here, but yeah, you just kind of move your mouse over certain parts of the screen, and we try to instruct you how to use it or what it's used for. So yeah.
Keep the questions coming. They give us some direction. It helps.
I did have another question. It was just in the chat box. This is Jackie, again, the Quebecer that speaks English.
Yeah.
But we were speaking about how to have the wand and the mobile app in the phone alert you to when the animals are passing through the chute. And could you do that for a weight? You would maybe make a new group for a weight. I want lambs between 60 and 70, or I want lambs 105 plus. Could that be made into a group and then the phone / scanning wand alert you?
Yep.
Does it
Okay.
have weight?
How can you do a demo of how to make a group? Not that I'm there yet, but
Yeah, sure.
a lot of the
Sure,
stuff
sure.
you're doing, I didn't even know about. So everything
So
is
every time we do anything with our sheep, really, we regroup them. So every time they're put into
Okay.
a breeding group, I regroup them. So I can either, I don't know, we'll select a group of ewe lambs here.
okay.
So they're in ewe lambs group. so I can actually, let me go back there for a second. There's a number of ways, I guess. So right here, I can regroup them to any one of these. I can type use
we can type.
U7, and she's in group U7. If I return, so there's 7 animals in this group right now. If I want to change them all to this U7, put my cursor in that group behind, and there's a replace function in here. Replace. You have to be careful. There's no undo with this function, but right here, this window that popped up saying, I want to replace 7 records with this U7 group, and I click replace. So now all 7 of those records are changed. So if I go by the list, see how they're all in group pen U7?
Yep.
I can do that on the list function too. So I don't know, I'm gonna select all my U's. So this is kind of like a reset button.
Okay.
So I have 257 mature animals in my flock database. So these are some key points of the screen, I guess you have to keep track of. So I'm in my flock, there's 247 records. I'm gonna view them by the list. And I can go through here, and this is it's grayed out here, so she's displaced or off the farm, but I can change her group to, I don't know, 0. And like I can do it right here in the list.
Okay.
It wasn't letting me do it because she's not on, like I have her off the farm, but I can go through any of these and I can regroup them here too.
And then
So
once in
this
the
drop down,
mobile, in the phone wand combo, you can choose which groups you want the wand to alert you to.
yes.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you're looking for, let me go back to the lamps screen for a second.
Because that's what makes
So-
management so good, is that the technology is telling you what you want to find.
Yeah, so
instead
you
of
can,
squinting at tiny ear tags.
if I'm not really familiar with this. So if I had, like, I could do a search for animals that are, I guess, greater than 45. No, I guess. Sorry, let me go back here for a second. Control weight.
Okay.
So if I have control weights, I'm not sure if I have them in here, but I can go, I don't know, say 40 to 50 kgs.
Okay. And it's all in kg.
So yeah, it's all in kgs for sure. So there's 80 records that have a control weight of 40 to 50 kgs.
And where do you see that? Can you just move the mouse over it?
Yeah, so up here's my results. So there's 80 records. This is the first of 80 records. And then in the first column is what I searched. So there was 80 that had 40 to 50 kg weights.
Okay.
So then I would go to their groups and I would regroup them. So there's a regroup button too, or
Yep.
you can just manually regroup them.
I see. Okay, thank you. I monopolized a lot of your time now.
Well, it's good. The questions make it easier.
I can explain it a little bit better.
Mark Smith is also asking a question. Does it work on a Mac computer?
Yes, it does. So you need the Windows app to run it. There is a couple of producers that are using it on a Mac. To be honest, I know nothing about the Mac systems, so my tech support is limited, but Jacques can help you out for sure there.
He's figured it out.
And the people that are using it haven't had any issues, so they haven't had to ask me, other than how to run the software. But as far as it running on a Mac, it works pretty good. So we're on the LAM file here. I just want to touch on this Genovis tab. So if you're selecting breeding stock and there's a certain index that you want to select for, you can just type it in here and do the find. So you would select Genovis, say it's a maternal index. I don't know, for demonstrations, I'm going to go equal to or greater than 50. in the percentiles. So there's 86 records that are in the top 50 percentile for a certain index. So like we mentioned earlier, you can search basically any piece of information on them, and then you would use your regroup, and you would regroup them if you wanted to sort them out shoot side.
Where are you seeing the 86?
So there's a kind of like a main screen. I don't know what you'd say, information here. Can you see my mouse?
Keep going. Are you on the LAM screen?
We're
people
in the
see my-
flock screen.
Oh, you're not even, okay. So, sorry, I have to share. I'm getting used to this Zoom thing. Okay, so this is my LAM record. I guess you guys didn't see me select. So this is my LAM record, and I would use my search function, and I would select for a certain index that's greater than or equal to 50 percentile. So EweManage just selected 86 records for that search criteria that I just entered.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't share my screen there.
No, that's okay. It's easier to follow you along now. I understand now.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So yeah, so going back, any piece of information in here, you can search by it and then regroup. And then, yeah, you could search your group shoot side and bring up, it'll sort out those animals that you're wanting to pick out. In Quebec, everybody, I guess, kind of ships on the, was it heavy lamb marketing grid? And you get carcass information back. I guess, Jackie, you'd know more about this, but EweManage has fields to enter all that information that I have never used, but you could sort by, like, when you get market lamb information back, you can sort by sires that are meeting your targets for your carcasses, which I haven't even got into.
I do think if you can give Jacques a little, how much money are we making per lamb box, or how much dollars per kilo box, that would be cool.
Box, okay, yeah, you can look into that for sure.
Like if you sell a light lamb for $250, which you can now, or a heavy lamb for 350, almost 400. It's just interesting to compare.
Yeah, I guess there's so many variables with that too, though. So
Well, I think if you go through that feature, that
yeah, I can ask him for sure. I honestly haven't touched that yet.
Well, then you'll see who your best ewes are, but also which ewes are making you the most money.
Yeah.
Your mating module from Genovus employee exporting for compatibility.
Okay. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of people that are using Genovus here tonight, but EweManage works really well, like with Genovus. Like I said earlier, you can export a list of tags to Excel. You can enter your list of tags into your Genovus mating module, and it'll calculate all your matings, best matings or best suited rams with predicted indexes. And then you can, there's a video on our website that kind of describes how to do it. I'm not going to do it because it's into moving around with Excel, but then once your Excel sheet and your breeding plans are outlined, you can import that file. So bringing in your breeding groups into EweManage, and then yeah, when you're shoot side, it'll have what group they're in and what ram they go to. So it's all lined up with Genovus, which I think is kind of cool.
Just allows you to use the Genovus mating module and bring it back in and resort your data.
If there's say there's a breeder that's selling a group of ewe lambs and you're using EweManage, there's a file. EweManage will make up a file that has all the data that you have on those ULAMs, so their health, any notes or whatever, and you can import it in. If the buyer has EweManage too, it'll import that file, and then you have all your information right in EweManage without having to manually enter it or scan the tags, which is kind of neat. I haven't used it, but it's a quick way of bringing in a lot of data on your animals that you've recently purchased.
The report's mostly exportable.
They're not, the reports that are made in EweManage aren't exportable, but you can make your own. It is a little trickier because it's kind of still in French, but there's an export record here, and then you can select what records you want to export. And you can
What
make
information you want to export.
Yeah, what information you want to export, I guess.
So for instance, you can shut your comments off, right? That was one thing. Like you can pick and choose what information you send. So if you're say selling animals, you may not send the whole file. You might pick and choose what you actually want to send for information.
So for the export record, like I can make a record of like select a group, and it'll put all the tags in an Excel sheet with like the sires, the dam, the date of birth, whatever information you pick. You can make your own report, I guess. It gets down to lambs born per year, lambs, kilos weaned. It gets into all that too. So you can basically make any report you want, really. It's a little more involved.
There's a question asking if you could demo the udder grading and how that works.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's just an activity here. So it's built into the mobile device too, and it's just a scoring 1, 2, 3, basically good, bad, and ugly.
So for instance, when I'm entering a lambing in the jug, I scan the use tag, and it gives me an opportunity to record any ewe information. You know, if she's had a retained placenta or hard lambing, or I can enter any data onto that. Then there's just a touch button for udder scoring. It's just 1, 2, 3, touch that. So it's a very quick way to visually check. And then you would proceed on to, you would tag your lambs, and you would enter your lambs to that ewe. So then tell the color coding.
So if I scroll through a bunch of these records, you'll see these different activities and the colors change. So it's just basically a visual.
Change her to a bad udder.
Okay, so this one has a good udder. We're gonna make her have an ugly udder. So right off the bat, her button here switches colors. So as you're scrolling through, it just kind of gives you a quick visual on udder, like depending on what you're looking at. So performance does the same thing. Scanning does the same thing. So if they were recently scanned positive, it'll be green. If they were recently scanned negative, it'll be red. If they're in a breeding group, it'll be green. So it's just a quick visual. Same with this final disposal. So this one here has a withdrawal date. So she was treated, and then EweManage will calculate the withdrawal date depending on what you have in the pharmacy too. And it kind of flags you. So even when you're shipping too, I think it'll the screen will turn red if you scan a tag that's in withdrawal, depending on what you have entered. It's always based on what you have entered in your system.
So if she's under withdrawal, it pops a notification up and the screen goes red and says, you can't ship this. I think he actually says it's illegal. It was his translation. So sometimes, and that was the challenging part about the translation. Jacques' translation and our translation is sometimes a little bit different. So it was interesting, but he does a really good job.
A lot of illegals.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so going back to some of this color coding, I guess too, in this lambing statistics, so all these green squares means she lambed out a season. So it's just kind of highlighting your out of season lambers, which is kind of neat. I don't know, you just kind of have to work with the system a little bit, and each little color, I know there's a lot of color in here, but each little color kind of means something, which yeah, you kind of get used to. I guess I'll kind of touch on the pharmacy. So this is the medical treatments. EweManage will, actually, I'll go to the pharmacy first. So you'll enter all drugs that are unique to your farm. Here's a list of some drugs I have in here with dosages and administration and withdrawal dates. So you have to basically set up your pharmacy. And then when I go back to the treatment section of a you can enter an issue that you're having, and EweManage will recommend what drugs you have on your farm that would treat those issues. It'll also calculate dosages based on the last weight you have entered on a record. So obviously you'd have to weigh your ewes if you're going to follow that. We just manually enter health records. I guess down here, we kind of entered we kind of put a spot in for fecal egg counts and colostrum reading if people were interested in that. We kind of did that here for a little bit. It was kind of neat seeing some of that stuff if you really want to follow the ewes and the lambs performance. We did a little bit of Immunovisna testing here too. So you can enter your positives and your negatives. It'll also pop up a list of positives and negatives if you're after that, if you're working at eradicating it. So you could search for positives and then regroup them and then ship them kind of thing. It just kind of highlights that
I'm
stuff.
gonna bump in with another question. Sorry, everybody else. I see that for the lambs, they only have the 50 and the 100-day weight, but is there more options to add in? Like, I weigh every 2 weeks, some groups. So is that something around?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I just flipped over to the lamb section. So your 50 and 100-day weights are kind of your mainstays or your main weight. There's a control weighing down here, so it'll calculate your average daily gains based on however many times you weigh. And so I think it's got 7 or
that's last 5
weights. If you weigh like more than 7 times, so these 2 weights are in here too. If you weigh over it, bump them out.
Okay.
But it'll keep track of your average daily gains.
And so which of the, I see there's like a little rectangle and a long rectangle. So I guess those are, since I'm still not on the wand and phone system, that's like the date and the kilos.
So your weight, the date, and then your average daily gain.
Perfect. Thank you.
I can maybe find a record. I don't know. I guess I don't have a whole lot of weights in here. So in order to find this weight, I just selected all the animals I have in the barn. I listed them by tag. So this is my tag list. And then there's some adjusted weights here. So I just picked an animal that was weighed. And then my cursor kind of moves along the side here on the left-hand side. So that brings me to this exact record. So when I go return to records, I have that animal on my view here. And then here's your control weights. With average daily gains.
in kilos.
Yeah, in kilos. So another thing too is you can adopt or you can foster over, and it'll track which lambs are fostered to which ewes. There is a little bit of a supplement tab here.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, if people keep track of supplementing. So it's not on the mobile devices. It's just kind of here on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But if I bring up a ewe record. Oh, sorry, I lost you guys. Let me just find a U here that has that. So I'm gonna search a U. So EweManage just kind of highlights the average daily gain. So it calculated the average daily gain for the lamb, but because it was supplemented, maybe it's not accurate. So it just kind of highlights it for you.
Okay. No one else has another question. I have another one. I accidentally, instead of putting RI for Rito, I cleverly put R1. Can I and then I added RI for the breed. Now, how do I delete R1? Because when the drop down menu, R1 comes up first. It's just annoying.
Okay, so you would go to that record that has it and you would just delete and then
it's out of the whole breed program. Like I want to delete R1. Like that breed doesn't exist.
So EweManage kind of self-clean. So it's the same with the groups. If you don't have an animal in that group would disappear. So if you
okay, so I gotta correct all my R1 breed that doesn't exist.
And get rid of it, it'll self-clean because you don't have R1s anymore, and it'll delete that group or that breed.
Okay. All right, because now I got a whole bunch of RIs and R1s in one group.
Yeah, so it'll do that for any of these drop-down menus.
Okay.
You can just do a find for the R1s.
Yeah, so you would go to your search, you would type in your R1.
Oh.
And then hit enter.
Okay.
I guess going back to that search and that find, I can search 2 groups at a time too. So if I want to pick all the animals that are in this 1912 group, I would hit enter. And then I would go find again, search another group. So we're going to do 2001 group and then add to the found list. It just merged those 2 groups together.
Wild.
So if I view them by the list, I've got 2 groups selected here in my find.
Okay.
So that's kind of neat. Sometimes I'll do that too. So I'll pick, I don't know, two different sires. I'll search 2 different sires and make them into a group or something for breeding. I know they're not related to the ram that I'm going to use, sort of for an example, I guess.
Yeah.
If anybody's into scrapey testing or genotyping, each record has a genotype here. It's kind of under the breeding because that's where you normally use it, but you can enter your genotypes in here. You can search for genotypes. Your rams, if I click here, this is all my rams. I have 17 rams in here. The genotypes right on the record. There is it'll calculate genotypes for your lambs. Maybe it's in here, genealogy. Again, I'm not really into this. List by genotype. So I guess this is a list of the rams that have certain genotypes. It'll also do inbreeding coefficient too. So you can select a ram and then a group of ewes, and it'll calculate inbreeding for you if you keep your own rams. Another neat thing too is you can flag your culls. So there's a list that they're still in all in a certain group, but I can select them as a cull by selecting yes. So these are animals that are in your flock, but you have them flagged to cull.
So for example, you just did that, you then changed her udder score to a 3. Would she automatically come up on your cull list?
No, I would have to go into her disposal. And under the cull, I would have to select her as a yes. There's 3 selections here. Confirmed means she's off the farm. No, you're not culling her, and yes, you eventually you'll want to cull her, so she'll come up on that eventually list. But yeah, you'd have to manually do that. So you can do a find
even though
for all your
even though her udder, even though you've marked her udder as to cull, you'd still have to do that follow-up step then to actually cull the animal,
Yes.
to put her on your list.
So the reason being is there's still producers out there that'll just have drop lambs and they plan on putting everything on a feeder. So
Or
they don't necessarily call them.
in our case, if she has a crappy udder, but she still raises a lamb, we'll just breed her terminal. So she'll stay in our flock until she quits raising lambs, really. So it's a 2-step process.
Yep.
I think I kind of got a bunch of stuff.
Understood. Are
So
there
now-
are there other questions out there, folks? Either unmute yourself and introduce yourself or type them in the chat. We're getting lots of comments. That's great. And thank you, Jen and Chris. You're showing us lots of things that you use and that you've learned to use. So this is wonderful.
So one little thing I was going to touch on, and you can't see it. I don't know why it doesn't. There it is, kind of. So this is a C1 that you've maybe heard talk about or seen. So EweManage is actually programmed to work on the Scion as well, and the Android phones and the Apple phones. So with the Scion kind of coming to end of life, the manufacturer, from what we've been told, is not making them anymore, and at some point won't support them. So Jacques actually ventured out and he found this C1. So basically what it is, it's an Android phone with a reader integrated into it all in one.
So the reader is manufactured by the same company that makes the Scions.
Yeah.
For a little bit of background.
So it runs the Android app on it. So that's our solution to the Scions not being discontinued. So it's actually a really handy little tool. It slides in your pocket and it's pretty comfortable to use. So yeah, that's something that's unique to EweManage and new this year. And so far so good. It's kind of
a cross between a Scion and a cell phone, really.
And does that reader have a scanner in it? Like it will read the RFID tag?
yeah.
That's what I understood too. Okay.
Yeah, so it's this little knob right on the top. I don't know why my phone doesn't like, or the screen doesn't like.
Because you guys have the fancy background.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah, it only goes for like human face and stuff like that.
I see. So that's the back side of it.
So
Yeah.
it's taking
If I
it
hold
as
it in
my
front
face.
of Jen.
Yeah. Jen is now a small unit.
Yeah. So yeah, basically it's just a cell phone with a reader in it. Pretty simple.
Can
Is
I
it
ask what
full?
the cost is for one of them? Sorry, it's Shanna Armstrong here.
Yeah, so it sells for 2,500, and then there's extra add-ons, like there's extra warranty you can purchase, there's a charging base you can purchase, and a screen protector, and yeah, it goes on. There's a whole bunch of accessories, but the base, just the basic machine with a USB cord is
How rugged? How rugged are they?
2,500.
So far so good. I haven't
We don't
killed it
really
yet.
we don't really know yet. It is a touch screen, so I'm sure if the screen was smashed, it'd be the same as a cell phone, but knock on wood, it's still going.
I think it's
here.
probably similar to a cell phone for as far as ruggedness goes. I haven't dropped it yet, but it's been in the barn with me for a year now.
That-
What's that?
That's what's nice about the Scion is they're incredibly rugged.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna argue that, yes.
Yeah, no, it's a great tool, but yeah, if it's not gonna be supported, I guess we're all kind of out of luck. So the one thing this thing that I found nice with lambing here is it slides in my coat pocket. And I zip it in my coat pocket. So that's been kind of handy there this winter, especially. So, but yeah, so there's lots of different options. The software does still work on a Scion, and Jacques will keep working with them as long as we can. So we're not doing any updates to the Scion software. With that software, we have to hire a third party to do that programming for the Scion itself. Whereas with the Android and the Apple apps, Jacques can do all the programming himself in-house. So the cost of development is far cheaper. So that's kind of where we've been focusing our efforts. Yeah. Some more questions?
Yeah, I had another one. The screen that's on that little C1 and the screen that would be on the Android cell phone, is it the same? Like
Yes.
the touch screen is the same?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And I did have another question. With one program of EweManage, like I didn't know it could work on a MacBook, so I pilfered a laptop from somebody else. With one subscription, can you have two programs going? Like say if you had I don't have a huge farm, but say if you did have a huge farm, like can you get one program, two computers, or is it one program, one computer? That's it.
With each subscription, you have licenses for 2 computers.
Okay.
A lot of people have upgraded computers. And
Yeah.
then we do have one producer with EweManage on 2 separate farms. We recommend not doing that because it's a lot of keeping like up to date, right? Like people have a hard enough time keeping one computer updated. When you're working with 2 in 2 different locations, that's even harder.
Okay, so it's not like those 2 computers would speak to each other. You would have
No.
to.
They don't speak.
You basically go logging on.
A lot of logging on and off. Okay.
Yeah.
And just another question, have anybody else used that C1 unit in a
Yes.
commercial setting type of thing? Like
Like
Just
in
one-
other industries, other
no,
sectors?
no,
you
no,
mean?
for other sheep farmers in Quebec
Producer.
or Ontario or wherever.
So I think we have 10 of them out already.
10
And
of
they
them
came
are-
out last fall.
Are on farm.
Yeah, so there's 10 on the English side, and then there's I don't know how many in Quebec that are running the C1s.
Okay. Because if you get one of those wands for like $650 plus a bummer cell phone for $100, you're halfway there almost. A quarter way there.
Yep.
Bad math.
Yeah.
Farmer math. Since you're already halfway there, you might as well buy the good one. And there is another question
Yeah, it's
from Vanessa in the chat.
okay.
I
Yeah.
can't see the chat, so somebody
Okay,
can-
yeah. The question from Vanessa is, what is currently the industry buy-in on EweManage, and is there a structure in place to reduce the cost as more buy-in?
How do we, sorry, I'm just processing your question. So we've had, I would say, pretty good uptake, but there again, it comes back to it's producers that all want, they value data themselves. It's not really about the industry or costs or anything else. It's producers that it's 100% solely for their own benefit, and that's why they're investing the time and the money. As far as funding, there's not a lot of funding for available. I mean, everybody knows where our government's at right now with finances. So no, there's not a lot of funding available. But the producer buy-in, we've had unbelievable uptake, I would say, and the producers, they're engaged and they want the data for their own use, and that's solely why they're there.
Yeah, so it is a little hard to get used to. I guess it's a different way of managing data, but once people invest a bit of time to learn how it works, even if it's just a matter of entering your lambs and your disposals, you have more record than the average producer, I think, more records.
Does that answer your question? Or
We have had, I have done quotes for people for applying for the CAP funding. So if that's what you're meaning, I guess.
and some have been approved.
Yeah, and they've been approved. But I don't know the steps that they went through to get it.
Well, say if you had like 100 people that wanted to be a part of it tomorrow, would that reduce the cost?
No.
1,000
No.
people?
So
The cost is also based on the tech support and that goes through it. So
how much time we spend with each producer?
yeah, so if we had 1,000 people on tomorrow, we would have to hire staff to do the tech support and to work through I'm sure if there's several thousand, it might change it, but I think you'll find compared to any other software, it's pretty competitively priced.
No, this stuff is very cool. I just know with our district that we're dealing with more smaller producers that
Yep.
that amount would kind of be outside what they're able to handle. But
Yeah.
the software is really cool. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. It's in actual fact, like more I learn about software, and to me, it's hats off to anybody, not just software, anybody that's investing, businesses investing in sheep, whether it's, your local feed dealer or hardware, like sheep supply company that's investing in sheep. There's not enough sales to really make stuff make sense. Product development in sheep products, it's tough in Canada. When we estimated the translation alone was roughly $250,000 worth of programming time. So it's pretty tough. The finances just don't really make sense on this stuff. So I think all these companies that we have supporting the Canadian sheep industry, we really gotta appreciate what they're doing for us, because it's financially it doesn't make a lot of sense actually.
Yeah, the small industry woes, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Another question in the chat box from Natalie. She's asking about if you're starting with EweManage, are you able to retrieve all of your data that you've already got entered into Genovis?
Okay, yeah. So if you have information in Genovis, Jacques can request a report on your behalf, and it'll bring he can bring that data into EweManage. The only issue that I've seen is like it'll bring all the information in, but as far as your lambing statistics, the report that they release is averages. So in this case, for this record, it'll be the average weight here, and it'll be all the way down for all her lambings. Same with number born, it'll be an average. So if you want accurate information, I guess you would want to start from scratch. If you're okay with starting out with your average,
and then you build from there.
Yeah, you would build off that. If you're on another management program, if you can get digital data like an Excel or a CSV file, we can import it into EweManage. So yeah, it becomes very limited when you can't get a CSV file from your current management software, or if you're just using paper, for example. But if you have like a spreadsheet that you're doing and you're using Excel, Jacques can play with the columns and he can import that data.
And there,
that save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's also, so that is included in somebody's first subscription, importing that data. So
Jacques does that. Yeah.
It's kind of some of that work that goes
pro bono, I guess.
Yeah. That justifies some of the cost, right?
So for most people that started on EweManage, most of them had Genovis records, and if they didn't, they signed up for Genovis, and then we extracted their Genovis information.
If they were coming off of a software that wouldn't share the files.
Are there more questions, folks? We're nearing the time that we're going to start winding down, so please get your questions in if you have any. Jen and Chris have done a great job of kind of highlighting how they've made the system work for their farm, and they've flagged for us some of the additional features that might be of interest to other producers. Of course, this is one of the software programs that are available, but the nice thing is that it is of course Canadian based, so it's ties in with some of the other programs that you may or may not be using on farm already.
I did have a question. I accidentally marked some lambs who were tagged as dead. and then I changed their group, because when they're dead, they go to group 0. And then I changed it back to group 1. Is that a permanent fix, like when I change that manually?
The idea, Mish.
So when disposing of animals, it's kind of a two-step
What?
process. So the
I
tag
think I
status,
voted them as stillborn, or like, like I said, she had 2 lambs, and then the next screen, you have to say how many were stillborn, or whatever the term that's in there. And I said 2. So it was like she had 2, and then they were stillborn. And I had quite a time. I ended up deleting a whole record, and then I needed a cookie or something.
so if the animal wasn't stillborn and you didn't want that record, you can permanently delete it. So
Okay,
that's
so
up
that
in,
X
up in here.
that X is delete. Okay.
No, the
No.
X is exit.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I
So
thought.
yeah, this is exit the program. I went up to records and lists,
Okay.
and then permanently delete record on screen. So if
Yeah,
you searched up that record, you can delete it.
Yeah.
If it's an animal that's not dead,
Yeah.
you
Not
would have to change the tag status. So if it was dead, it would say displaced. So you'd have to switch the tag status back to active, and
okay.
you would have to change the group other than 0, because all dead animals are put into group 0.
Yeah.
So
I
you would,
went and I deleted records, and not a good day.
yeah, I don't
But
think
okay,
you
so you
want to
just go
delete
into
them.
it took me a while to realize that all of these colored buttons are changeable.
Okay, yeah. So going back to your bringing your tag back to life,
Yeah.
there's an NID administrator in here. So help and records management,
Yeah.
NID administrator. So these are some tags that I searched off that last screen. There was 8 tags selected, and you
Yeah.
can go through and change the tag status. So this is a displaced one.
Okay.
So I would make it active, and then I would put it into a whatever group, U7. So I just brought that U back to life.
Okay. Can't we do that to all of our U's, eh?
Yeah, if only that was that easy.
Yeah. Okay, that's gonna make my life a little bit better. Just because I made some mistakes learning, the
Yeah.
sequence of inputting things.
Yeah. So I guess that would be one major downfall to EweManage is there is a learning curve of how you do everything, and you just have to accept some mistakes that you make, I guess. Like,
And you kind of work through them.
yeah, you kind of work through them. I was in the same boat too when I started.
Yeah. No,
Which is
just for anyone else that's listening, like the first year I bought it, I did absolutely nothing with it. So I wasted $200. But now I started, and it's like I just made one graph and I was completely floored. So it's very cool.
Yeah, Shanna Armstrong here. Two quick things. Number one, so we just started, I think it was the fall, we signed up for the first. And so this is super, super helpful for me, just trying to like get a feel, because it's kind of overwhelming because there's so much information and knowing what is where. So super helpful, and I really appreciate it. And then the other is, it's kind of nice. I'm kind of afraid that I'm going to like do something and it's going to wreck it all. But seeing you play with it, it's also kind of helpful to see that I think it has a little bit of give, as long as you don't kill the sheep in the program. Otherwise, it's somewhat forgiving, I think. So yeah, thank you very much.
So the software does do backups as well, quite
Okay.
often. And you can, every time you log out of the program, you tell it to do a backup. So you can, if you do really screw something up, you can go back to that backup.
But I would recommend manually doing a backup. Yeah, depending on how valuable your records are to you. If you cannot live without them, I would recommend doing a backup on a USB stick. So if your computer does crash, it's on a different piece of equipment.
Right, good idea.
That's with anything, but yeah, once you have 1 or 2 lambings under your belt with EweManage, you'll definitely want to do a backup.
Yeah, thank you.
The other thing, and it's not just for EweManage, but I think it's for any software or anything you're doing, is I recommend people don't try and take it all in at once. Pick 1 or 2 things that you want to work on. So we're going to enter our lambing data and our mortalities. And once you kind of get that under, now you add something else. If you're trying to take too much in, it gets so overwhelming, and you'll burn yourself out. That doesn't matter. It's not just EweManage, that's everything in sheep in general. Yeah, and I think we've all been there. But I think, yeah, for us, I see, yeah, the lambings, recording your lambings, your deaths is probably one of the most valuable things to record. Everybody talks about how many lambs are born, but how many actually make it out the door? And that's, most people are surprised by that number. We still hold on to that first, how many were born that first day. We hold on to that number, but it's the shipped lambs that actually count. So I would say that's probably where some of your biggest value is in any software.
And then one more tip too, I guess, is a lot of people like to start EweManage when they're lambing. That's probably the worst time to learn. Yeah, you're dealing with no sleep and ewes running you over, claiming pen as you're trying to tag the lambs. And then you just get frustrated with the software. I would definitely recommend entering a breeding or just going out and scanning your tags in as a purchase, just to practice bringing files in, because there is a manual step of retrieving your records and your files into EweManage. But yeah, I would avoid trying to learn it when you're lambing. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions.
Just some comments to share that are in the chat. The software is very cool. I hope we can work with some other government bodies to reduce the cost. And kudos to you guys for pioneering the cause. A thank you to District 10 for allowing out-of-provincer to participate. And thank you, Chris and Jen, for presenting and answering my questions. And I guess that kind of wraps up, I think, the main part of the questions. Certainly reach out to Jen and Chris if you do have additional questions. From my experience, they're always willing to share and give you an idea of some things that you could consider. Not necessarily just with this software program, but also in your farming practices altogether. I very much appreciate your time with us this evening, both Jen and Chris. You've got 4 young children there who've been very cooperative in sharing your evening with us. So thank you. And thank you to everyone else who's on the call tonight. I understand we haven't heard from Devin tonight, but I understand it's his birthday. So I wanted to give a shout out to Devin, who I know is on the call. A happy birthday to you. And a thank you to everybody that's participated tonight. With that, I'll sign off. Fred, I don't know if you have some wrap-up comments as our chair to wrap up the evening.
Only to say thank you, Jen and Chris, for a very valuable presentation. I saw it the first time up in Grey Bruce Sheep Day 2 years ago, and was impressed then, and I'm even more impressed now because you've been through a whole lot more of the various reports and things. It's very impressive. And if there's one thing that producers can use, it's more data. Just sorting out the good ewes from the poor producing ewes and leaving more money in your bank account at the end of the year is the most valuable thing that this program can do for people. So I wanted to thank everybody for attending. And I want to thank Jen and Chris for their presentation. And I hope everybody will come back to our next Sheep and Greet and maybe even to some of our boring business meetings. So thank you from District 10 to everything. And with that, I guess we're good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, all. Thanks again.